You're live. Great. Welcome back to Senate Education. We have, I think, Jennifer, Michelle, and is it Megan or Megan?
It's Megan.
Megan. Okay, great. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to Senate Education. I'm going to have us just go around the room so you know each of us, our districts, and then we'll turn things over to the three of you. But I do want to just say a big thanks for taking the time to do this. We know how incredibly busy you are. We are also immensely grateful for everything you did during COVID and continue to do for kids. And what we're trying to get a sense of is, we get to hear from all sorts of your representatives, if you will. We hear from the NEA, we hear from the Principals Association, Superintendents Association, School Boards Association, but it's great hearing directly from people who are, on the ground doing the work. So we'll start with Senator Hashim.
Sure. Hi, I'm Nader Hashim. I'm from Dummerston, representing Windham County.
And standing to my left.
Hi, this is Martine LaRock-Ulick. I live in Burlington and I represent Chittenden Central.
And I'm Brian Campion. I represent Bennington County, Wilmington, and Londonderry.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Weitz, representing Rutland County from Proctor.
And I'm Senator Terry Williams from Rutland County, and I'm from Pullman.
And would you first tell us each where you're from, so we know in your district, and then we'll probably start with Megan. But let's just first hear where you're all from.
I'm Megan Morgan Puglisi. I'm from Senator Campion's district in Bennington.
Great.
I'm Michelle Egan, and I currently work at Slate Valley Union Middle High School, and that's in Fairhaven.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Fortier, and I teach at Newport City.
Great. So, Megan, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you teach, how long you've been at it, and tell us what you're seeing right now with your students, and tell us how we can be helpful.
All right, so thank you for inviting me, Senator Campion and Senate Ed Committee. I'm a national board certified teacher. I train educators in restorative practices. I serve as a local union president, and I've taught high school math at Mount Anthony Union High School for 11 years. As you know, I'm sure all of you know, Bennington is one of the most economically depressed areas of our state. We have many students experiencing extreme trauma daily as a result of the opioid epidemic, poverty, loss, and other situations. Some of our elementary schools are currently in severe crisis. On a daily basis, staff are hit, kicked, and assaulted. They have to evacuate their rooms to keep other students safe and resupply materials anytime a student destroys property. We've had over 60 injuries at one school alone and are only at the halfway point of the year. While the schools try to implement restorative and other interventions, they lack both the staff and the time since they're constantly putting out fires. Our district has created a separate location for some of these students experiencing severe trauma for short periods of time, but it's not currently staffed by any clinical personnel. Our school-based clinicians in each building are at capacity. The district, and I want to be clear, the district was headed this way long before COVID. Basically, things were building up, and all of us were predicting something big was going to happen somewhere around March or April of 2020, and then we shut down. COVID simply delayed the crisis point for about 2 years. Teachers and support staff have quit mid-year because of these conditions. We started the year with fewer educational support professionals than we need. Our ESPs are not paid a livable wage and have been fighting to get salaries increased. Over 55% of them do not take the district offered insurance because they simply can't afford it. We have no subs. And they won't raise the sub pay to encourage people to become subs because it would cause them to be paid more than our ESPs. Our school boards remain reluctant to increase school budgets because residents can't afford our rising property taxes. So here's what we need. One, We need more funding for clinician and wraparound services. Our district has so many homeless students that we need the voucher program for hotels to continue. We need more community schools where students can access doctors, dentists, and other services, and families can access job and parenting support. We need the state to provide the funding for those resources. 2, we need higher wages. Teacher salaries in our district, one of the largest districts in the state, remain lower than most other districts in the state. And we are the lowest paid in our area as well. So we lose staff every year to surrounding districts and surrounding states. So we're at the corner. So we lose people to New York, to Massachusetts, and even sometimes to New Hampshire all the time. 3, we need things taken off our plates. The high school needs to not worry about proficiency-based grading and graduation requirements. We're keeping dual grade books because colleges outside Vermont have made it clear that a proficiency-based transcript puts our students at a disadvantage. In addition,
Megan, would you just say something about that? I mean, a lot of folks who are new on the committee. Tell us a little bit about that situation.
Absolutely. So, however many years ago now, the state was really encouraging a proficiency-based grading system, graduation requirements, etc., K through 12. And proficiency-based grading, the idea behind it is that instead of being kept to a 100-point system, you have students just demonstrating that they are proficient with standards. So for math, for example, let's take math because that's my wheelhouse. We have the Common Core state standards. And we have prioritized said standards to be like, all right, these are the big ones that our kids need to show proficiency in. And it sounds like a great idea, okay? So that, you're not worrying about kids having to do it on, they just have to show proficiency, right? It definitely works in elementary school. It has merit in middle school. It gets really tricky in high school because there are so many things outside of our control, right? Our students are applying for college, all that kind of stuff. That having a transcript that has no GPA, or it doesn't have a comparable, it has a proficiency-based GPA as opposed to a traditional GPA, a report card that doesn't have grades on it, all of that kind of stuff puts our students at a disadvantage because colleges will see a different transcript and will put it aside if they have so many other transcripts to look at. While colleges in the state of Vermont have said that they will accept a proficiency transcript, we can't control what other states do. We have also found, so through our own anecdotal research, we have also found that there are very few high schools that are still actually using the proficiency model for multiple reasons. And so currently our high school teachers are keeping 2 grade books. We are keeping proficiencies and having to write like, the student is missing this, blah, 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 blah. But then we're also keeping a traditional grade book. So it takes a lot more time. It's a lot more paperwork. And ultimately, our students don't really like proficiency-based learning is great. Absolutely. We should have proficiencies. We should be teaching to those proficiencies. The grading is where it gets complicated and frustrating. Does that answer your question?
It does. It's helpful. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
You want me to continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. In addition, so in talking about things being taken off our plate, in addition, the new special ed requirements are not specific enough to provide districts with guidance on how to implement them. So different districts are doing different things, and our district has interpreted them to mean that all special education students need to be completely mainstreamed. And I've talked to other districts, and other districts are not interpreting it that way. So we have students thrust into the general education setting without the supports they need, without the special education staff necessary, and just without the personnel. And so, for example, I have a class of 18 students, runs all year, where only 1 is not on an IEP or 504. Even with a math teacher, a special educator, and a paraeducator in the room, we don't have enough support. Every single student in that room needs one-on-one attention. And with 3 of us, it's not possible. And number 4, perhaps most importantly, we need the state to rethink how it funds education. Tying funding so closely to property taxes sets educators and schools against residents. They blame us for property taxes going up. It creates a lot of animosity in our community. School boards won't raise our salaries to the levels necessary to make our district desirable because they don't want to antagonize voters. Money is part of the reason why our district won't admit that we don't have the resources to serve some of our students. If we did, we would have to pay tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars to send them somewhere else. We simply don't have the money. So we're trying to find ways to serve these students who we don't have the resources for. And I teach because I love my students and my colleagues.
Yeah.
We conducted a listening campaign at the beginning of the school year and found that overwhelmingly our staff return every day because of our students and our colleagues. But conditions are making it harder and harder to keep going. Self-care isn't enough. We need structural change. COVID gave us the opportunity to reconsider how we do school, but we missed the chance to do that. I think our state is brave enough to rethink education altogether. We just need to do it.
Senator Gulick has a question.
Megan, thank you very much for that testimony. Your 4th point was the news. You talked about the new special ed requirements.
Act 173?
I'm sorry?
No, please go ahead.
No, what did you say? Yeah, Act 173, is that right?
Yeah, my question is, can you drill down a little bit into that? That there wasn't an ask there. You presented us with a problem, but what would be the ask with special ed?
So I think a good start would be very clear guidance on what the state is looking for, because I don't know 2 districts that are doing the same thing with that guidance. And it's causing a lot of issues. Like our district has completely eliminated self-contained classes. I think it's a start would be guidance.
Thanks.
Yeah. Megan, I just pulled out what the NEA handed us in terms of priorities this year. Do you help write these priorities? Did you vote on the priorities? Is that how they're decided?
So
I'm just a little trying to understand process a little bit.
So there
Yeah.
are a number of ways that happens. We have our representative assembly once a year where that's part of it. But there's also a lot of things certain things are decided by the Vermont NEA board, which is made up of and support staff and all of that. So
That's helpful. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Megan? Megan, can you stick around while we continue the conversation?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Michelle, please, thanks for joining us.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's kind of an honor to speak with you from our vantage point, I think. And Megan made a lot of points that I am going to make too. I've been in education for 26 years, 21 of them teaching in schools around Vermont, 5 of them raising and teaching my young children. Currently, I am a lead teacher at the new district middle school in Fairhaven. Our 4 sending schools were consolidated this year in fall of 2022 to 1 district middle school. I'm a lead teacher for the 8th grade team there. I teach 8th grade ELA. I'm a member of the district instructional vision team. What we do is we prepare for in-services and act as liaisons between the curriculum coordinator and the staff. And then I'm also a master's candidate for the educational leadership program at UVM.
Congratulations.
So my kind of what life is like for me. I went from Orwell Village School teaching all of middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, where I had the most students I had were 40 in 1 year, to class sizes of 25 and 26 this year at our consolidated middle school. So I'm going to echo Megan's point. It's with everyone of all the needs in the classroom, not enough para educators to serve our population. Not enough. I mean, I will go to say that the teachers I work with are the most consummate professionals I have ever worked with in my career. I have 90 ELA students, and I have support in 2 of those classes. There's not enough support. We're told that we can't get any more. We have students with emotional disturbance in our classrooms, and we're told that they don't qualify to have a special educator or a para educator in the room. And so I'm trying to teach students, I'm trying to further their reading and writing and all these skills that they need to be a functional human being in conditions that are so far from optimal, and the range of abilities, because I teach middle school, we do not ability group. And so the range of abilities that I might have in a classroom is a student who might be reading on an 11th or 12th grade level and able to write on that level as well, and a student who simply can't write a sentence with a capital letter and a punctuation and knowing what a verb or a noun and how to even put the sentence together. And I'm told that we just simply don't have the resources. To go to Megan's point, I believe at this point in time, we have 2 subs for our entire middle school, which means that when teachers have to be out for the self-care that we're told to take, and we're told to, take care of ourselves. If you need to take a day off, take a day off. Our colleagues cover our classes, and we are compensated for that, but we're asked the day of, so we can go into work and think that we know what the day has in store. And then we're asked to fill in for one of our colleagues because we just simply don't have enough substitute teachers. And what Megan said is absolutely true. It's based on pay, but it's also based on the fact that you don't want to pay the subs too much, because then why would anyone possibly work as a para educator? Why wouldn't you just work as a sub? So we have those issues as well. I spoke with some colleagues about this testimony, and one of my colleagues pointed out that it seems as though staffing for paraeducators and teachers seems to be decreasing, while there seems to be more and more admin positions added. So that's an issue that our district is having. We seem to be really heavy on admin or central office, but when it comes to adding teachers to this or paraeducators, that's just it's too expensive. Also, one real issue that I see is like Megan said, our decisions are being made that aren't best for students. They're being made because of the emphasis on passing the budget. So this district middle school was created to consolidate, to cut costs. And last year the budget passed. This year costs will go up because there's no more cuts to be made. And so this year I fear that the budget will go down multiple times, as usually happens in my district. But again, decisions, like I said, my class sizes, I have colleagues who have 26 students in a classroom, and some of them have multiple support staff or one-on-ones for students. And so with those numbers, we've cut as much as we can, and the burden is borne by the teachers. When Megan was talking, I was thinking about proficiency, which does work. It's a great idea, but students are just passed through. We're at the end of our semester is tomorrow. And what's going to happen is I have students who have not submitted any work, or who have submitted very little work for the semester. And I'll indicate that on their report card, but there's no consequences. Those students will still go on to 9th grade. So there's an issue of how do we how do we catch these students up? It's a slippery slope. They just keep backsliding if we don't have those supports for those students. Teacher expertise is undervalued in my district. Really, if decisions need to be made, that's why this is such an honor. If decisions need to be made, really the teachers should always be involved, because we're on the front lines and we see these students on a daily basis. Wages,
may I-
of course.
May I
Go
ask
ahead.
you a quick question?
Yeah.
When you say with the proficiency, so if you have a ninth grader that you really feel should not advance, he or she is receiving a comment saying, this is where they're at. You know, they're doing these things well, they're not doing these things well. And that's it. It doesn't have a letter grade. It's they're just
No.
receiving that narrative.
No, so it's not a narrative. So it's indicated with numbers 1 through 4. So 4 means they're exceeding proficiency. A 3 means they're proficient. A 2 means they're slightly below proficiency. And a 1 means they have not, they're far away from proficiency. The issue, and those students, I feel like we are trying really hard to work with. The issue that I'm having when you have a student who has not completed any assignments, you give them a no evidence, and a no evidence turns into a 0. But what a no evidence means is we don't know. We don't know what their level of proficiency is because we don't have any evidence. They haven't submitted any assignments. Those are the students that I'm mostly concerned about passing on. They're the students who we just don't know.
Because they're not handing in any assignments.
Correct. Yes.
And yet
And
they're
so-
being passed on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, for sure. So I'm going to say our need. So again, I think it really, for me, boils down to the way that we fund education in the state of Vermont. And this has been a long-standing issue. It is still not equitable. Even after everything that's been done, it still comes down to the community and the community's willingness to support the budget, to pay those taxes, to educate the students. And communities feel very, very differently about funding education. I used to live in the town of Middlebury. That is a town that will pass, in my experience, will pass any budget that you want. That is a community who does not, the majority of them, they will pass any school budget. There are always those people who say no, but those budgets always pass. The community that I'm part of that I teach in now is not like that at all. So that's not equitable. That means that if you go to a school in a community where the community, majority of the community supports education, those students receive better materials, better supplies, better technology. They can recruit better educators or more experienced educators because those educators, the wages are higher. Another thing that is always a struggle in my district, and I'm going to be honest and say I'm not sure where exactly this comes from, but personalized learning plans, or PLPs, are just, they're the bane, I'm just gonna say, they're the bane of my existence. And for middle schoolers and elementary school students, I understand that there's some value in high school students kind of presenting kind of like a passion project. But I think a lot of schools are now basing graduation on that. And I really feel like we almost need to go back to those basic competencies. That's when I went to school in Vermont, when we had basic competencies. And I almost feel like we need to go back to some of that and leave. Maybe you could connect the PLPs to basic competencies. But I really feel like the PLPs it's adding more to our plate, as Megan was saying, it's adding more to our plate that just now is not the time. One more.
Thank you. Sure, go ahead. I just want to make sure Jennifer has enough time.
Oh, sorry. And then one more thing is, So like working conditions, I was put in a building this year that we have 200 students in a quarter of the size of the high school. I was in a meeting yesterday with the other lead teacher for 7th grade and administration, and we're trying to figure out how this is a brand new space. We're trying to figure out how to rearrange the bell system so that not all the students are in the hall at the same time. So these are things that are being put onto our plate that really have nothing to do with education. And it's because I believe that the priority is funding and not what's in the best interest of students.
Thank you. Jennifer, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you. I have to agree, this is a great honor to have this opportunity. I think you're going to hear a lot of repeats from me. I am a lifelong resident of Vermont. I am a late bloomer in teaching. I started in accounting and went back to get my teaching degree when my kids were in elementary school. So I began teaching in 2005 at Glover, and I taught 2nd grade there for 14 years. And now I teach 3rd grade at Newport City. This is my 18th year of teaching, and I am also co-president of our union. Some positives that we have observed in our district: we feel like we're slowly working our way back to normal. Student attendance is improving from COVID days. Our administrators and school leaders are asking us to the table to brainstorm ways to attract and retain staff, so that is good. Working in a state with an engaged teachers union is a definite bonus when we look across our nation. And student success in building relationships are always fulfilling for every teacher. Some challenges, they are just repeats of what you've already heard. Student behavior is consuming the few resources we have. Our administrators are overwhelmed and almost unable to attend to improving our systems. Their duties extend them too thin. These jobs that they're doing were done by others or not as numerous. And to name some of those: parent contacts that our administrators make on the daily keeps them here till 5, 6 o'clock. Subbing, some administrators in our district do sub. Making daily plans to staff our building so that we can stay open takes them often an hour to just get us up and running. IEP and 504 meetings, budgets, paperwork, student behavior are to name a few. Paperwork required to obtain student support is tedious, which often leads to underreported issues. Teachers in our district often question why we have students in our buildings or classrooms who we seem to not be able to meet their needs. It is often felt that mandates that come through are tying our hands behind our backs because so many more things are regulated. Another challenge is staffing shortages. Every school in our district has a subbing shortage. Students are not getting the service minutes on their plans. As I said, most mornings our administrators are pulling staff members from their actual jobs to fill classrooms. Support staff and non-classroom teachers have to be incredibly flexible right now. Behaviors get first coverage and academic needs seem to be second. We have a very big bus driver shortage that often makes our day start late, or we have to have staff members cover children on the playground till the next bus can do the second run. Our district has the highest number of teachers on provisionals. Newport area, we have a big drug problem and there's not a lot of attraction to our area. We can only pull from the south. And so staffing our buildings is very difficult. There are few doing the work of several right now. Another challenge is students and families. Many students are disengaged. Poor habits established from COVID still exist, while absences and attendance attendance is better. Absences are still a problem. Students come in exhausted. Some are just not motivated, and we still have an abuse of our sick policy. Staff safety is a concern every day. We deal with violent and dysregulated students, as the other two ladies have discussed. Many teachers and possibly administrators don't feel supported by the community, and particularly parents. The last challenge I speak of is staffing, which I've kind of touched on. The demands of the job feel difficult and sometimes impossible to fulfill. Testing students when the majority are not present to learn feels very defeatist. This 200-year-old system needs a revamp and before it crashes. The reason many used to enter the profession don't exist anymore. We used to have stellar, affordable healthcare, flexible schedules, livable wages, part-time work for mothers. Our support staff, they can't afford daycare or healthcare if they have children of that age. Some solutions, maybe consider creative ways to meet the needs of staff and students, maybe abbreviated student weeks, systematic behavior policies, and evaluate state mandates that rely on staff. Special ed, MTSS. We did a deep dive into MTSS the other day, and we noticed that a lot of it depends on interventionists and special educators, which we are in short supply of. Raising wages, while not a cure, it would definitely help. Ways to possibly attract teachers going into this profession, maybe suspend praxis, offer licensing reimbursement, or student debt reimbursement that comes a little quicker than 10 years. Consider an alternative to the current state testing model for students. Is this best practice for our students right now? And suspend initiatives that are not designed at the local level, because in Vermont, we're all in different places right now. Thank you.
Senator Williams.
So are you all union, members of the union?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, please, Senator Brewer.
Thank you. Jennifer, you mentioned suspend praxis, and I'm not sure everyone on this committee knows what praxis is. Could you just give us a quick description?
Sure. Praxis is the test that student teachers must take in their undergrad. So they often take it in their sophomore, junior year. It is a rigorous test. Back when I did it, it was Praxis 1 and 2. I think there's new terms now, but the first one is general knowledge. And the second Praxis is designed to your certification. So if you're a high school math teacher, it will be designed to that. And it's expensive. There are testing scores that you have to pass, and it has eliminated many new educators from our profession. At the elementary level, the second one, the science and social studies portion hangs up a lot of our possible educators, and they simply cannot come into this profession without passing it. And so really, it seems like a test of knowledge. So when we can carry around a device that we can look facts up, it seems unnecessary.
And just to jump off of Jennifer, just to point out, so social studies and science tend to be the biggest hangups, and there are plenty of schools in our state right now that in elementary school have pretty much eliminated, I say pretty much, eliminated science and social studies instruction in K through 5 because of all of the requirements for English and math.
Colin, is praxis a state requirement?
For licensure, yes. I think that we've been talking about this recently, and I really appreciate, first of all, Jen and Michelle and Megan for making the time to do this. I was in House Education yesterday, and this conversation came up, and we were talking about maybe there's value in the agency of education and the Vermont Standards Board for Professional Educators, which is the licensing board for teachers, reviewing alternative metrics other than the praxis. We want to be careful not to lower standards, right? I don't think anybody wants to do that, but obviously the praxis is it can be a barrier to some folks for various reasons. One that hasn't been mentioned, of course, is, think about somebody who maybe English isn't their first language on a basic level.
Yeah.
That might not have anything to do with their ability to be a great teacher, manage a classroom, have content knowledge and expertise.
Yeah.
That if they're getting hung up by not being able to pass the praxis.
Any final questions for our guests? This has been incredibly helpful. Do we have all of your email addresses? Yes, we do. I see Mr. Ross is telling us you do. We do. We may be back in touch. I would think that we very well may be. This is very helpful. Thank you all for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Good night.
you.